Paradise was a small town in the US, full of apple orchards covered with trees, just out of the valley into the mountains of California. Back in 2018, it burnt to the ground. 89 people were killed, the most devastating wildfire on record there. The award-winning French photojournalist Maxime Riché captured Paradise in the aftermath of the fires and returned again to document Paradise being rebuilt in a place he calls brutally inhospitable. His book, Paradise, is an incredible canvas of documented images of the town and its people. And Maxime says the story is of the effects of climate change and gives us a glimpse of the next place we'll have to go through healing after a similar disaster. He joins us now. Maxime, good to talk to you. Give us a sense of why you wanted to go there and see this. At the time, 2018, a lot of people were heading away. You were heading towards Paradise.
Sure. Good morning. So I'm an artist and photographer, and I've been documenting stories around climate change or socio-environmental issues for 15 years. So after dealing with climate change, I wanted to tackle another subject about our desire to live anywhere we wanted, and also how we adapt to those changing climate conditions. The interesting part about Paradise is that the cause of the fire in 2018, but also the one I was there in 2021, is human, because it's a fault on a power line. So I was really interested in how we want to rebuild after those catastrophes, but also why we go back there and how we adapt to those new environmental conditions.
So the fire itself, huge news at the time. It was called the Camp Fire. I think it's because it started, you said, as a power line that basically hit on Camp Creek Road,
Exactly.
Spread to Paradise,
Right.
burnt 90% of the town. Just tell me how you decided to go about capturing it with some of these images that we see in the book.
Yeah. So when I decided to go there, it was a year and a few months after Camp Fire. So I was sure I was not going to see the burning news, so to speak, of the houses being burnt or the town being destroyed. I chose to get out of the news time frame, but rather to go in the long term. I call my work speculative documentary, because I like to face it towards the future and ask questions about how we're going to change our behavior or what could happen next. So I wanted to document the rebuilding and the healing after this catastrophe. Therefore, I decided to use a specific film. I only work with film for my documentary projects, and this film captures the near infrared as well as the visible spectrum. So that's a film that was used by Kodak back in the days to document forest from the sky, or during wartime also the enemy troops.
So that's why we see this deep red tinge.
Exactly. It brings such colors that I was looking for those colors to remind of the fire, the reds, the blacks, the yellows. So that was a specific artist intent to use this specific film to bring those visions of the fire, this inferno that those survivors had been through.
Yeah.
Because when I was there, obviously it was not burning. Although when I went back in 2021, it started burning in the exact same spot because of the exact same power line.
They built it in the exact same place. Now, this is fascinating in a sense as well, because this is a place that has seen wildfires before, 2008, previous to. People there know, but they call it their paradise. This is what they want to live under, the same power lines as you say. And they're still determined to rebuild the place now. It's starting to take shape again.
Sure.
Tell me about the people that you were deciding to make your subjects and their lives.
It's my intent was never to judge about anything, why people moved back or what their reasons were. I was here to listen to their take on the fire and how they felt about rebuilding there. The fact is that some people were born there, or they had spent most of their lives there, so they are really attached to the place, and it's understandable. You are probably very attached to your hometown as well. The question is, how do we take note of those new conditions, and are we afraid or not, or are we going to change something? When you live in a place that requires a lot of electricity, a lot of consumption, a town, and it's a place where you have to bring this electricity through forests and hills that are really steep, and it's really hard to access them, and it's really dry because of the heat in California, because of the winds, because of the changing climate and the warming climate. Then there is a question about how do we manage when such an event happens, and that's what I was looking for in the testimonials of the people I met. Like, how do you feel now? Do you feel like
these people living in their trailers, living in their cars as they try to rebuild what they had left?
Yeah, because it's really difficult to rebuild a house 20 years after you first built it, because price has gone up, regulations have changed. You have to go through all the decontamination after a fire because everything leaked to the ground. So the water was polluted, everything was in rubbles.
And what you recreate changes too, because am I right in understanding the reason many people came to Paradise, it was also a cheap place to live, cheaper than elsewhere in California, and by rebuilding the town at the moment, a situation where prices naturally start to increase and becomes less affordable for the people now living in their trailers.
That's totally correct. People were trying to escape some of the big cities also, be more quiet in the forest and in a place that actually was really, really beautiful. Now it's not as beautiful because you don't have trees anymore. For most of the landscape, it's very dry. You have strong winds there, but also in California in the summer, it gets really hot. So you have to live within your house with air conditioning or within trailers for those who don't have a house yet. And it requires even more electricity to power the air conditioning to filter the air from the smoke from the fires, because now there's fires in the sky for maybe 3-4 months a year. There's no real fire season anymore. The fireman told me, like, now it can happen anytime. Campfire was in November. So it's not just in the summer. It can happen even when it's winter.
I've reported from wildfires before. I remember one significant one a few years ago, in 2018, in Mati in Greece. And seeing the destruction, seeing everything blackened and people still determined to build that place and lives ruined. What do you extrapolate? You talk about speculative documentary making, looking into the future. What do you sense is the message for all of us as a result of the need to continue to build and yet live with that risk?
Sure. First, I want to say that this story about Paradise, it's a tale. So Paradise is a very symbolic name because it reminds of God, but also the divine willingness, and the fire obviously reminds of that as well. It's here to speak of all the other places that have burned or may burn because of how we live or where we live. So it's not just to criticize or judge what they do there, but actually, yes, after a fire it's really difficult to go back. Like you lose every marks. Like there's no colors, the smoke, the smell is very different because of the smoke. So people are trying to go back because they feel emotionally attached to that place, but the community has been hit really hard. So they're trying to, stick together and make it happen again. So this is also very pioneer, like in the
this is
West,
an incredible
American
shot. I'm
West.
going to say this is watching Paradise. What have the residents made of your work, seeing it?
Sorry?
What have the residents, what have the people your subjects, what have they made of your work?
There have been many exhibitions throughout Europe and abroad in the world, including here in Paris in the National Library, and people resound a lot to those colors. And the interesting thing is that some see the positive, some see the negative in them. So it's up to you to interpret if you're an optimist or pessimist about what may happen again of those fires anywhere in the world, actually.
And it's worth saying that you are exhibiting at the moment. You can come here in Paris to the National Library, Bibliothèque Nationale de France. Where else are you exhibiting at the moment?
That's for now.
We can't get the book yet, though.
The book will be ready early summer, so you can pre-order it on André Frère Editions website. So it's ready for pre-orders. It's going to be beautiful. It has those parts where you go inside the colors of the fire, because we wanted to bring that feeling of like it can happen again and it can happen anytime. So it's a back and forth between the normalcy of a new life they're trying to rebuild and those very strange colors and very hard images that also come throughout the book at different places.
You said you didn't want to judge, and I can see that you're looking at where this goes, but just what feeling did you get from the place? And that's for you to think, okay, is there an answer here? I think one of the reasons why the place burnt back in 2018 was because the communication systems didn't work, whether they melted within it. Is that a possibility for the future? Whilst Paradise is, since you've been there, I think we're talking about almost creating a new town. Mm-hmm. Briefly, do you sense that there actually potentially is an answer within Paradise?
Sure, things are changing. The faulty power line created this arc that ignited the campfire, and the communication systems were not adequate. There was no sirens. It was just a text message alert system, and people were sleeping. There is no real coverage in Paradise. It's hard to reach for cell phones. So there were kind of surprised at dawn, and really when they woke up at 6 in the morning, they had to evacuate in a minute. So that's also one of the reasons why there were so many people killed. They have tried to adapt that and to create other alert systems and to bury some of the lines, some of the power lines. So things are a bit evolving. But you know, the conditions in California and on those hills is not changing, and the Dixie Fire that burnt in 2021 burned 3 times the surface area of a town like San Francisco.
Wow.
So it's not getting better.
Maxime, pleasure to talk to you. Despite the subject, and Paradise is being rebuilt in spite of what's happened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Author of Paradise, as he said. You can see his work at the National Library, the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, here in Paris for the next 2 days. And for those just joining us